Welcome, guys, to the next live interview for the Warrior Academy podcast. We're live streaming this to our Warrior family groups in Dubai and the UK. And later, this will become a Warrior Academy podcast episode as well. I'm privileged to have Lucy Barkas here with us today. Lucy is a BBC radio business expert. She focuses on leadership, so she's a leadership coach, she's a speaker, she's a podcast host, and she's author of Leader X. Lucy, it's amazing to have you here. How are you today?
I'm good, though I'm a little exhausted after hearing all the things that I've been getting up to, and that's just in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I bet. So today we're going to be talking all about leadership. One of the things I forgot to add really was that you are a scout leader. So what's quite cool is, you work with adults to develop their leadership, but ultimately you take those lessons into working with children as well. And we both, share a passion for developing the character of young people. A big part of that with the Warrior Academy is leadership, and obviously that's something you really focus on. So we've got lots to talk about. Before we go into leadership, I'd quite like to get to know, or for our audience to kind of get to know you a little bit better. So could you tell me how you got into this, and just a bit of a background about yourself?
Yeah, so it's quite scary when I say that I've been doing leadership for over 20 years, but I've got to profess that my first leadership gig as such was as head girl at school, so I count that.
Okay, yeah.
But it was amazing how actually being thrust into that position, even though they were like fairly minor tasks, actually it taught me so much about dealing with, the big bosses and the governors and the head teachers, but also, the children from all different age groups. So I started my career as such then. And what I was always fascinated with is, why do people behave the way that they do? So I went into my degree was all around the social sciences, and I really loved the economics and the sociology around it. So it was about, creating environments where people would thrive and the economy would thrive. So I came out of university thinking I was going to land this top graduate job as the recession hit, and there were no graduate jobs. So I took a summer job, which ended up becoming a 16-year career in the energy industry. And I absolutely loved it because, when you're working in a firm that's got like 10,000 employees and so many different functions, I was able just to move around. So I worked in energy trading. I did, chasing debts. That I was one of those people on the phones. I quickly moved into the business sector. So I was doing a lot of the in-demand pricing. And then eventually I moved into heading up what we called the commissions or the reward section. So it was all about looking at how to optimize performance incentives and understanding why people work the way they do. And with each promotion I got, because the first one I got was when I was about 22, and I was leading a team of 40 people, which was amazing. But I realized I was just so ill-equipped to do that. I had no life experience. I had the personality, but had no frame of reference. So I took a sideward step and then kept moving up. And I took on more responsibility as I grew as a leader. And thankfully, my bosses, they were awesome because they were doing this new thing called coaching. So I was one of those guinea pigs right at the start, and I just thought there's something in this. So 7 years ago, I took the plunge and I decided to start my own business, teaching other people my secret formula, so to speak. So since then, I've been running 3WH, my company, and working with some amazing, awesome people and loving my work.
Amazing. Wow. Really, really interesting. It's great to see that kind of journey, and you mentioned about the head girl being the start of it all. And, it's amazing now you look back on that as a bit of a turning point in your life where things started to, you can join up the dots. Now you look back, right? And you're like, well, that was a key moment. That was a key moment for me in becoming a leader. I love that. Yeah. And I hope that so many of our students feel the same way,
Yeah, and what I've always found is, and this is what I believe in the work that I do, is anybody can succeed if they've got the right environment, and secondly, somebody who believes in them a little bit more than they believe in themselves. And my teachers at that time had that faith in me. Because I didn't believe that I could do it. And so much so that I went to them afterwards and said, "Are you sure? Why me?" But the feedback they gave me was that I had this ability to connect with people. It didn't matter whether they were rich, poor, loud, quiet, whatever their background was. I was able to bridge that gap. And it was just, getting that feedback. I'd never seen it within me before. So I want to inspire other leaders to be that believer in others.
Right. So to kind of inspire other people, so to speak. So
totally.
Okay, brilliant. Really, really interesting. So with your work right now, obviously, COVID-19's hit, we're in lockdown. How affected are you by that in terms of your work and what you're doing now? Are you able to kind of pivot online and deliver online?
Well, the beautiful thing about what I do is there's kind of like two parts to my business. So the one part of it is direct one-to-one coaching. And to be fair, most of that was done remotely anyway. So that's just continued. Although for a lot of clients, they have taken a bit of a pause just because they've just had to focus on delivering today, which actually is the wrong time to take a pause because they need that headspace just to think things through. But the second part of my business is the bit that I've almost had to pause a little bit. I'm not pivoting completely. I've still taken it online, but that's the stuff where we tend to do 6 to 12 month development programs where I take a team on a journey. And usually it's a day on their site or in a lovely hotel somewhere. And we come back every month and keep going to another layer and another topic. So what I've had to do instead is do an hour, maybe hour and a half masterclasses, followed up with some activities because people just can't hold the focus for more than an hour and a half on Zoom. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. No, this is it. I think a lot of people want to use Zoom, for their full day workshops and stuff, but it's tough, isn't it?
Too much.
Keep that engagement. And then you think about schools trying to do that with schooling, right? I mean, homeschooling for hours on a screen, it's pretty tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
you've got to like meet your customers where they are, and me trying to sell anything else, it's just not going to work.
Yeah. So with your your work hat on, that's how you're running the show. With the scout kind of role, how are you doing that now? How has that affected? Obviously, you guys can't meet up. How are you managing the community there and keeping everyone focused on the same values, right?
Yeah, and I'm still running my section nights every Monday night. So I've asked the parents to join via, we tried it on Zoom this week because the other technology just wasn't stable enough. And thankfully, the Scout Association have done a brilliant piece of kit. So on their system, the children can upload their work. So every week I set them a challenge. So the first one was the most inventive thing to do with a necker, which was quite interesting. Then we did make something you can eat that won't kill you. So that was interesting. So some amazing creations. This week, though, I'm actually getting them to plan and run and think about all of the things needed to run a camp. So we're starting again to start thinking about strategy and planning and forward thinking, decision making. And then next week, they're actually going to do the camp. So I've said you can do it in the loft, you can do it in the garage, you can do it in the garden, in your brother or sister's bedroom, whatever. But I need to see the plan first. So it's almost like writing a little mini business case.
Yeah. So you're kind of creating this adventure within their own home, right?
Yeah. And I said try and think of a theme and go wild with it.
Yeah, right. I mean, I absolutely love that. I think that's, we've seen a lot of people becoming very creative during this lockdown, haven't we? And I think that's something we should encourage, right? And exploring, that's a great idea. But it's even better when it's led with a bit of structure, and you can really get the most out of it. And there's a couple of other friends I've got who run sort of outdoor adventure type things, and they're taking families into their gardens to go camping and all this sort of stuff. It's amazing, So that's really, really cool. I love that.
And what I also love about scouting in particular is it teaches maths, and it teaches history, and it teaches planning and organization. So it teaches all these skills, but it does it in a fun play environment. So as they'll be doing these activities, even if they're baking a cake, they're having to look at measurements, and they're having to look at timings, and they're having to look at planning ahead. And so actually all of these skills, school can feel quite harsh, and actually half the information doesn't go in. which is why I have some issues with the education system, which I know you have too. But doing it in this kind of play, fun environment, they don't even realize they're learning.
Yeah, and it's kind of indirectly giving over those core skills which students need, right, in maths and etc. You know what I mean? So, yeah, totally love that. That's brilliant.
I've got to say though, that the biggest challenge I've got with running the Scouts on, virtually, is actually the parents, which is really funny.
Really?
Yeah, because I'll be saying, right, I want you to go and cook this, or I want you to plan that, or I want you to go and try this. And the parents are you sure? Or they don't want the mess, or they want to be, helicoptering all around, making sure it goes fine. I'm like, trust them, they can do this.
Sometimes it's just kind of leaving them to it to a degree, but being there just in case it all comes crashing down, right?
Yeah, they can be the risk safety assessors in the background.
Yeah, health and safety officers.
Yeah.
So we've had lots of chats before about the Scouts and about the Warrior Academy, and I feel like we're really aligned with our kind of ethos and values, and I really love that. I struggle to compare our focus on character development with many other sports clubs or activity providers out there, but with something like the Scouts, I really feel like there is that focus, which I absolutely love, because I wish more people would place the development of character above academic success, above physical fitness. These things, everything in life stems from having that development in your character, right? So how was that shown within Scouts?
Well, the essential thing to start off with is the Scouting do have their guiding principles. So I guess in business we would call those your values. And when they join the group, they all make a commitment. So they have their Scouts promise, which they all declare, and it's actually a really lovely moment. That's when they get their NECA, so they're brought into the tribe. So instantly we have this tribe mentality. So everyone chooses to behave in a certain way, and equally one of them is to be helpful and to be kind and support. So if somebody is struggling, then it's your duty as a Scout or a Cub to lean in and help the other person. Right. So it's really creating that character of when to step in, when to hold back. So that's one of the things.
So from day one, there's this, it's quite interesting. What I quite like to do is align something we do with you, the way you do it as we recruit. That could be quite good fun. So as soon as the Scout enters, what do you call it, your tribe, or?
For Scouts, it's a section. Yeah.
Section, sure.
Yeah.
As soon as someone enters this section, they're kind of initiated into it with a sort of welcome, which makes them feel like they are part of something, right? And in the same way, they're given something which symbolizes that. With our students, they are given a uniform. They have to do a behavior checklist at home to earn that uniform, and they become a warrior because of that, right? Then you spoke about the values. So can you tell me what the values are, or the guiding principles?
Yeah, so there are things like respect, taking care of each other, inclusivity. So it's those kind of words. So there's the 5, and you put me on the spot now because I can't remember all of them.
There's 5, right? So there's 5 core values. So within what we teach, we've got the 5 tenets of Taekwondo: perseverance, integrity, self-control, indomitable spirit, and
See, you're on the spot now. Yeah.
And instructor Matt will be watching this, and I'll get in a lot of trouble now. So yeah, I mean that's a similarity already, isn't it? Which I
and then the whole of everything that we do in Scouting, then it's all guided in play. So before we introduce what we're doing that evening, we have a game. But the games will either be something to do with teamwork, problem solving, tactics. So it could be something as simple as British Bulldog, where you've got 2 opposing teams, you've got to work through it. Or it could be a mind thinking one. But that's the section. And then we all get together and we do our ritual, which is raising or lowering the flag. So again, it's right now we're ready. So and I'm sure you have a welcoming thing.
Yes. So with us, when you walk into the dojo, you bow as you enter. Right, so it's a sign of respect to the instructor and the room. You're essentially turning that room, no matter where you are. It could be a school hall. It could be right now. It's the living room, right? So, I mean, you bow as you walk in as a sign of respect, but it puts you in that mindset. So you guys have a ritual or something you do, which it symbolizes something at the beginning as well, or
Yeah,
just at the end?
beginning and the end of the section nights. So yeah, with Beavers, which are the 6 to 8 year olds, they get in a circle and they say a little poem together. When you get to Scouts, it's the raising of the flag where we all salute. So it's that, again, it's that ritual to say, right, you're present, you're in the right mindset. And I suppose in workplace, it's the similar thing where you might put your clothes on, or you get to the office and you mentally prepare yourself for the day.
Yeah.
And then every section night, we are working towards a badge.
Right.
And some of
every
the
night, every night's got a different focus.
yeah, totally. And so some
How
of
long
them might
does it
be
take?
short-term badges. So we're going to do the science badge, and so we're going to do some experiments tonight. But then some of them last their whole of the scouting career. So we call these challenge ones, and some of them are staged ones as well. So so one of them might be, which I really love, is the personal challenge. So they come up with a personal challenge, something that they know is going to be really difficult for them. And over weeks, years, they start building that up. So I always remember one scout, I loved it because he was brilliant when he came to section evenings. But when I asked him what his personal challenge was, he said, I want to go a whole year without getting a detention. That's amazing, because obviously I'm seeing a different character to what his teachers are seeing. And he did it, and then he got his badge, and it was like, yes, I did it. So there's
completely.
personal choice as well as and they get the badge, and I suppose you're the same.
Yeah, there's a physical representation of their progress, right, within the belts. The belts take about 3 months in for most of the junior grades, and then 6 months to get, and then 12 months to get. In between each belt, you've got to earn 5 stripes. So every week you're aiming for a new stripe. It normally takes about 2 weeks to get a different stripe. So again, there's that kind of, it feels very tangible when you're younger and you're looking at these stripes building up in the same way the patches are and stuff.
But it's no different to the adults. And this is where I really struggle with a lot of organizations when they're setting their annual goals. And right, this year you're going to achieve this, and we'll appraise you at the end of the year and work out whether you deserve a bonus or a pay rise. Like, no, that's a year away. Let's actually think about a mini milestone, and let's look at this short project, and let's celebrate that as we go. So actually, I joke that leaders, whether they're young kids or grown-ups, actually they're not that dissimilar. But they're not. I don't think most of us mentally have really progressed from about the age of 12 anyway.
And maybe it's gone backwards now during the lockdown, who knows. But but it's, that's really interesting. And I guess that the principles are there, right? And I mean, a lot of the principles that you now have as an experienced leader, you look back on, and probably they were being developed from that time as a head girl in sixth form or whatever. Those principles, there was a foundation of it. Of course, you build on it and you develop your awareness and your skill set within that. But it's the same principles, right?
Yeah, totally.
Amazing. So yeah, I mean, you've got a system for developing leadership, which I know you use for adults. Could you walk me through that just kind of briefly, and then it'd be interesting to see how that transfers over to young people?
Yeah, well, that's when I'm working with a leader, whether it's one-to-one or as a group, as a team, I follow what I call my 5 My's principles. So, and actually you can apply it to any situation. So the first thing is that awareness of, where am I now, my present situation. So I think a lot of people are just in constant firefighting mode without just taking a breath and saying, right, what needs to be done? What's really going on? And then as part of that is saying, and where do I want to go? So it's looking at that strategy. So where am I now? Where do I need to be? So that's the first thing. And that doesn't matter whether you're building a huge organization or actually just trying to build that campfire. It's no different. It's like, have I got the tools? What's the wind like? And you're looking at the environment you're in. And then once you've got that clarity and of all the blocks and barriers, and you can make a plan then to fixing it, then we look at myself. So who do you need to be and what do you need to become to actually make that vision or that goal a reality? And if you've got everything, brilliant. But if you haven't, you either have to choose to develop it or you build a team around you that are going to support you. So that's that bit. Then we move on to my team. So and this is really important because I think so many people are taught how to lead a team, but they're not taught how to be a team player. So even if you are the leader or the director or whatever you want to call yourself, how do you also be the one that's supporting, or when do you know when to lean back? So we do so much about team formation and building trust and how to influence and all of those kind of skills. And again, we do that all the way through with scouting, and a lot of the games that we actually play in scouting then get translated, and I actually use them in my workshops as well. And
really?
I tell my clients that, and they love it then, because they're like, oh, and the scouts got it, and how many seconds did they do it in? So there's a little bit of competitiveness. So that's fun. And then the final bit is, one of the last bits is my business. So that's saying, right, you as the leader know where you're going. Your leadership team knows where it's going and how to work. Now we need to start cascading that to the rest of the business. And that's the bigger, loftier piece, really. But it's about being a role model, having your values, also the systems, the processes, the performance management, the rewards, all of that stuff.
Right.
And then the final bit is what I call my legacy. And this is about, how do you actually want to be remembered, either as a business or as a leader? So if people recall, their teachers that they have now, or, whether it's a scout leader or a warrior academy leader, in 5, 10, 20 years time, they will be able to remember you. They might not remember your name, they might not remember your face, but they will remember how you made them feel. And that's the legacy piece that I really want. It comes back to purpose. So all of that absolutely translates into everything that you do in life, if you decide to live your life consciously.
Right. Wow. Amazing. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we could do a live on each of those.
Exactly.
Easily,
which is why I wrote a book. Yeah, because it's much easier. But the one thing that is really central for me in everything that I do is this element of having fun, which is why I say we play lots of games, because I could just sit there and talk at you or give you a book to read. But it's actually the interaction and the having a go and playing that actually joins at the dots in your head. And again, I suppose it's the same for your students. It's when they're actually having a go at them, because they could just sit there and watch you, but it's when they have a go that they realize, oh, that didn't work, or that technique, or that's really tricky. And it's in the movement and the activity, that's when they actually learn.
Yeah, no, completely. And it's, when you're enjoying it, you're learning so much faster, right? I mean, you're more engaged, especially when you're dealing with young people. You can't do something which isn't good fun and expect them to stay engaged for a long period of time. And then that translates.
They're the best mirror back to you, because if you're boring, they'll start yawning, they'll wander off, they'll start.
You can just see it on the face, can't you?
Yeah, totally.
Quickly change the class plan.
Yeah,
plan B.
Exactly.
But yeah, I'm notorious in the Warrior Academy for not playing any games, but
yeah, put a few in there.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I mean, we've got these amazing this amazing process which you're using for adults. You transfer a lot of that over into the scouts. How important is it, do you feel, to develop leadership skills in young people? Is it necessary? Does every young person need to learn leadership skills?
Yeah, and it's really interesting how children also think about what leadership is. So one of the activities that I did with the Cubs is when they're progressing, they get to become patrol leaders. So that means they're the top of their little their section. The technical name is they're a sixer. They get their badges, and it's great. So we often do a leadership camp for them. And one of the sessions I run there is I always get like a whiteboard or a blank piece of paper, and I say, what is leadership to you? And the words that they come out with just blow my mind, because they say it's things like they're supportive, they're kind, they listen to us, they look after me when I'm sad, they help me, they listen to me. And so they're really, the really heartfelt kind of words that actually all leaders need that, whether it's being the leader of your own life, leader of a sports club, leader of a multinational. Those are the kind of qualities that means you're not a manager, you're a leader. So then I ask them, where have they learned those, or examples of good leaders? And they might say, my mum, my dad, my ballet teacher, my teacher at school. So their world of reference is very small, but they're already able to pinpoint who these role models are. And then I ask the same when I do it for the scouts, the slightly older ones who are up to the age of 14 and a half, and already they're starting to see a change in language, which I try and stamp back almost, because it's when I'm working with leaders in their 30s, 40s, 50s, it's really hardwired and it's a lot of work to undo that thinking. But the words that they come up with, they're strict, they're bossy, they're the ones who talk the loudest, they're the ones who give the instructions. And so again, I say, where do you learn this? And they say, the headmaster or headmistress at school, or my coach in this activity. And because, you know, they're in classrooms, they have to sit down and they have to be quiet, or they are disciplined and punished. Already they start being conditioned into more directive command and control style leadership. And I'm doing everything I can to break that cycle. So I tell that story to the leaders that I work with in the business world, and it just blows their minds.
Yeah.
They start tracing it back when this changes, and everybody recognizes emotional intelligence, listening, being humble. All of those qualities are so important equally to strategy and planning and budget control, all those other ones.
So, I mean, within a lot of the work you're doing, we've just got a question here from Abatef from Dubai. Thank you. This live session is so informative. Question, please. How do you develop positive self-confidence? So I guess that's a huge part of developing those leadership skills. How do you find is the best approach to doing that? I know you mentioned that believing in someone more than they believe in themselves is such a positive attribute of a mentor.
Well, I'll give you an example of one experience that happened last year with one of my scouts called Dan. And Dan worries about everything. He worries about the world, and he worries that he won't get things right. So I guess it's lack of confidence. And we were at a camp, and we were on a climbing wall, and he got the helmet on and already started the negative self-belief. And his team were around him, and they were like, "Go on, Dan, you can do it. Just put the helmet on. Just take the first step." And so each step that he took, we were like, "Yeah, you've done it. You've got there." And do you know what? The first attempt, he didn't quite do it, and we were fine with that because we allowed him to fail without any shame or guilt around it. We were like, "Brilliant, you did a great job." But at the end of the session, once he saw everybody else do it, he said, "I want to go again." So it was that perseverance and that resilience. And everybody in the whole of the camp came round and they were cheering him on. It was amazing.
Oh, I love that.
So that's how you do it. It's positive reinforcement. It's meeting them where they are. It's not knocking them down if they fail. It's just saying, "Great, you had a good go. And how do you feel now?" So it doesn't happen overnight. It's those little chunks. And again, when the team celebrate it as well, it just means so much. The peer-to-peer championing. Yes,
I think that you know, for any coach or instructor or mentor, those are the key moments you really remember, right? Where you see those turning points just unfold, and it's a clear milestone for students. I think,
but it's also equally, you know, just if you're a parent at home and your child is maybe plaiting their hair for the first time, or trying on their shoelace, or riding a bike. You've got to, again, think about it. You don't say, "Oh, stupid child for falling off your bike." You say, "Go on, you can do it. Get back on." So it's just that constant reinforcement. Never make them feel ashamed. Always make them feel like they can do it, even if their step is only a small one.
Definitely. And it's interesting. I mean, our 4-step methodology is community, inspire, challenge, lead. And those first 2 steps, right? Community, inspire. So community, you know, having that community, that support around you in the first place is such an important foundation. Inspire, they wouldn't be climbing the tree in the first place with the helmet on if they weren't inspired. And because of those 2 things, they're now in this position where they can challenge, where they can grow. And that leads me to a really important point, something you brought up: allowing children to fail. And this is the sort of thing I've seen within the educational system. We won't do a full blown live on that today, but you know, I've seen a lot of schools and clubs out there very, very cautious and avoiding their students or their children experiencing failure. And for me, it's so important that we change the dialogue around that, right? It's got to be part of the process. And failure is it's a feedback mechanism so that you understand what course of action to take next, or how to kind of grow past that, right? How do you encourage students to look at failure in Scouts?
Every time we celebrate them for having a go. There's sometimes some laughter around it, and a bit of taking the mick, because we've got that trust and that we can do that because we're friends. But the first question I ask is, what would you do next time? Or how could you improve it next time? So there's always got to be a positive lesson. So rather than, that you didn't work anyway, let's carry on. It's like, okay, next time, how are you going to commit to doing it? And you know what? Sometimes, they'll try things and they'll just say, do you know what? I didn't enjoy that. I don't like it. I don't want to do it again. But at least I tried. And it's that mindset of at least I tried is what you want to try and build in. And if they don't like it or they don't succeed, that's okay. But can you encourage them to either try something else, try a new technique, or, whatever the learning is, it's a good learning for them.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so much can be said for the language we use. Do you know what I mean? And one of the things we always discuss as instructors is inspiring through language. I always feel that the way we talk to young people is we're almost painting a picture of what they'll become while we're talking to them. And it's really important to kind of reflect on that, I think, especially if you having that responsibility to mentor people through difficult transitions like that. So
the reality is that within the human brain we have something called a mirror neuron, and it is actually the way that most of us learn first. And so we're constantly observing people all the time, and it's all going into our brains. But it's, from a very young age, before the child can walk and talk, it's observing, it's noticing, and it starts to mirror, which is why, your children have probably got those traits and they're like, oh, you're just like daddy. Actually, they've been observing you from the day they're born. No wonder they're like you, And so as leaders or as role models, your children, whoever they are watching you all the time. So your language, the way that you say it, that glance that you give them when they're telling you something really interesting and you're just looking at your phone, it is informing them all of the time. And so not just, I talk about conscious leadership, it's also conscious parenting. So you are, I often say, I want to raise warriors. And that's what I talk about with my children. I want to raise warriors. And which is great because that's the name of your company also.
There we go. It's very aligned.
Yeah.
Almost, yeah. Says, thank you, Lucy. So we've got a good question here from Seb Van Lockham. Seb's he's in the army, so heavily into leadership, and also an ambassador for the Warrior Academy. So great question here, actually. Leadership is important, but it can also be a lonely place. Lucy, have you seen this professionally or with the Scouts, and how can we prepare children to be more resilient with the loneliness of independence?
Yeah, so I tend to call it autonomy as opposed to independence, but it's all the same kind of thing. But with autonomy, it's about having the ability to make decisions for yourselves and also embracing the responsibility that comes with those decisions. And yes, the higher you go, the smaller your trusted network comes almost. So what I actually teach, whether it's leaders or team players, to do is you need to lean into your trusted circle. So it's only lonely if you allow it to be lonely. If you think you have to be on your own and isolate yourself, then that is the world you create. So for leaders who don't yet have the trust of their team, then that's where I say get a mentor, get a coach, talk to a peer, even outside the business, so you can, build those really strong relationships. And actually, with my clients as a coach, I become their biggest champion and their best friend almost, but in a strange way because I'm brutally honest with them, because it can be lonely. And then we start working on building the team so they don't feel so alone.
Wow. Well, great answer. Brilliant insights. We've got a great question here from Valerie. Valerie's the Chief Happiness Officer in the Warrior Academy, so she looks after
that name.
It's a cool name, isn't it? Valerie looks after, and it couldn't describe Valerie better, to be honest. Valerie looks after all of the Warrior Academy parents. So Valerie said, positive reinforcement is so important. I speak to many parents who have children who are now becoming scared to try new for fear of failure, something new for fear of failure. Would you say you've seen that a lot as well, kind of in the Scouts?
Yeah, well, I think I just
More
see
so,
it.
more so now?
Yeah, there's two camps of people that I've seen. There's either the real optimists or maybe the more pessimistic. The optimists are very much have a go, have some hope, try things. I trust you, I believe you. So it's all that really empowering language. And they're the ones who are probably getting in the mud pie and digging out the worms with their children, and it's all fine. And then you've got the other ones who are, unfortunately, we've got the phrase helicopter parents, who are so scared of something happening to their nearest and dearest that they almost smother them. And even if you think that you're putting a brave face on it and you're hiding this, your children can sense the vibe. They can sense when you're panicking or when you draw back from someone. And so, yes, I do see it. And what my lesson, especially to the scouty kind of parents, is, you know, actually when they're with me, they're great. They try, they strive, they build that self-confidence. So just have a look at the way they are around you, and are you feeding it? But it's natural to be worried. But actually, you know, a parent with an 18-year-old is still not holding their child's hand when they cross the road. So eventually you do have to let go.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I look at myself and Vicky, and I think Vicky is, you know, she wants to kind of look after Molly a lot more. I'm probably too laid back, so there's this balance, you know, which I probably encourage her to take more risks, and Vicky makes it much more safe. So, you know,
that works. Yeah.
Without that balance, yeah. So, but it's interesting. I often find, you know, if you look at it like, if a child falls over and they're 1 year old or they're 2 years old or 3, they will fall over. They'll experience pain. They'll hurt themselves. Then they'll look at you to find out how they should respond. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so totally. I mean, I've watched children fall over, parents almost running in, skidding in, you know, like something out of a movie to try and catch them and look after them. And you know, the reaction of the parent can be so extreme. Yeah. The child's like, well, I need to give an extreme reaction back. And so if you kind of translate that to later years as well, I think, you know, especially when you're looking up to mentors or looking up to parents, children are waiting for a guidance on how they should respond. Yes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. And my children laugh at me all the time. They're at that age now where they can laugh at me. When we're on a scout camp, because they're scouts as well, they'll come along with me, and you'll get one child falling over and come to me and say, I've hurt my knee. And my children already say the words, well, is it bleeding? Is it broken? Well, get on with it then. Because that's the way it is, because I knew very early, do you know what? I can hear when it's a real genuine cry, or I can see the blood when it's really serious. But if I make it a catastrophe, it becomes a catastrophe.
You can almost hear it in the tone of voice, right? Where it almost sounds like a question.
Yeah.
You know, like, I've hurt my knee.
Yeah.
Tell me how to respond. Do you know what I mean? It's waiting for that.
But it happens later on, and this happens all the time in the workplace, that people almost get addicted to drama. Right. So something happens, and well, he said and she said and da 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 and da da da, and this is all going horribly wrong. And actually, there's more drama about the drama than there was about the initial problem. So you can either feed it, or you can just say, "Look, what's really going on here?" Yeah,
human beings love drama, don't they? I think.
And it's exhausting.
It is exhausting. Seb Van Lockham says, great answer. Thank you, Lucy. Let's see if we've got any more questions up here. Not just yet. So we've spoken about emotional intelligence. That's a really interesting topic, I think. And I think, you know, even if you're not training up a young person to become a leader and to lead other people, there are so many benefits of using leadership development as a tool to develop a child, right? So, you know, improving their communication skills, improving their presentation skills, improving their emotional intelligence being a big part of that, improving their problem solving skills, all these different things. So for you, what is emotional intelligence? Why is it so important?
So it's very interesting how there's 4 years difference between my two girls. And I've noticed the way that I've parented them differently since I've become almost a master in teaching emotional intelligence. And now as an adult, well, as older children, I can see the difference that that's caused in them. So the first thing with emotional intelligence is being able to recognize, where are you right now? What are you actually feeling? What are the thoughts that are going through your head? And to be able to just stop and just notice. And so with my youngest, who I've been, I taught her from a very young age. When something was going on, I said, how are you feeling? What word is it? Where do you feel it in your body? And I gave her, because, we all get angry. I don't want to suppress her anger. So, but I've always taught her that if you get angry, it's up to you how you channel that anger. And so I gave her, it's a little Elsa cushion. And I said, if you feel like this and you're frustrated, scream into that and yell into that, but don't hit your sister, or don't, have a hissy fit. Learn to control it. And so that is the process that I've been training my daughter in from a very young age, is to recognize it and be able to name it, understand why it's happening and why you're feeling or thinking that way, and then being able to make a positive choice about how you then behave, act, or feel. Because my feelings pass in seconds. But with my eldest, I didn't know these skills. And so it was things like she would get angry and I'd be like, oh, no, calm down and don't get angry. And I was telling her almost like that feeling is negative. Don't feel that way. And now as an older person, now she's learned the emotional vocabulary, but it's not as natural to her as it is to my youngest, who's very eloquent about how she feels. She can, understand the difference between nerves and excitement, or frustration and anger. And she, happiness and sadness, and joy, and she can articulate that. And so if you can start having that emotional vocabulary with your children very early, and for a lot of adults, you need to go and read the book on what are the emotional vocabulary words, because we weren't taught it. So go back to your study and then say, no, that isn't anger. Do you think it might be you're frustrated, or you're cross, or you're disappointed? Okay, why do you think you're disappointed? Right, what do you want to do about it? And then get them to take positive actions. And if they can learn that from a young age, it will just transform the rest of their life. And it's not about just being a leader of others. It's about being a leader of yourself.
Yeah, completely. Wow, brilliant. I think, giving that awareness of the emotion when it arises, being able to give it a name, and then having tools, giving a young person tools to deal with that specific feeling, right? I mean, one of the things we do is teaching mindfulness and meditation from a young age is just super powerful for that. We've had children who've struggled with anger and a lot of arguing with siblings, and we've managed to turn the school rush hour drive into this Zen practice now. And we've had parents tell us they quite look forward to it because their children practice meditation on the way to school, right? Wow. So we've had children come to us and say, I used to get really cross with my brother or sister, and now I go and sit on my own and I close my eyes for 30 seconds, focus on my breathing. And it's having very practical tools, I think, that you can actually implement, not just saying these things, but saying this is what you should actually do, right? And putting that into a daily practice. Because if you don't practice it won't work.
What's really like I was talking about, people get addicted to the drama, or they get addicted to firefighting and continual chaos. And it is because we've just got in the habit of it. And because it's, it's feeding that dopamine and that cortisol rush. So by the time you're adult, you don't realize that you're just in this continual cycle. But when you have got huge decisions to make, and it might be about, business, but actually the ultimate decisions will impact your people's lives, your followers' lives, whether they are able to pay their mortgage or not, really big decisions. You need to make sure that you have got the clearest head and the calmest mind to be able to make really rational decisions. But when you're in the chaos and in the stress, and, you're thinking with your mammal brain, your monkey brain, and you cannot make reasoned good choices. And so that's why, these practices early on, and it's never too late to learn how to do emotional intelligence and to be able to take that pause, and whatever method works for you, but being able to take that pause and activate that executive function, because that's what sets us apart from the animals. We need it.
Yeah, completely. And as you said, it's never too late. And one of the things you said is, as parents, sometimes we need to upskill and maybe dive into some of the emotional vocab, which leads me on to our question here, which is, as parents, I'm good in the theory, but in the practice, it's so much more difficult. When you are a warrior, not a warrior. That's funny enough. That's something my mum used to say she was. I almost get the feeling that parents should get trained to be good leaders to our kids. Yeah, 100%. I would agree with that. Would you agree with that, Lucy?
Yeah, totally. And like I said earlier, it's about conscious parenting. And, when we're talking about building that confidence in children, actually, as parents, you can still build that confidence in yourself also. So at the end of the day, actually do that self-reflection. What did I do well? What didn't I do so well? How could I make it better next time? So rather than just going into the same situation, behaving the same way, start looking at your own behaviors. And sometimes it's really horrible to take a look at yourself in the mirror and realize you failed as a parent that day. But that's okay, because tomorrow you get another chance. Your children are going to love you anyway, so you're okay to fail.
Yeah, and it's interesting there, because we've had a couple of other amazing interviews with Mary and Marina, who I think you know as well, and they talk a lot about parents feeling guilt, which leads to shame, and there's this overwhelming sense of with the kind of pressure that's put on parents that you always need to do everything perfectly, and if you don't do it, you're failing as a parent, right? But ultimately, I think as long as you're doing everything you can, or you feel as though you are, it's almost directionally correct, right? You can't always do everything perfectly.
Yeah.
But I mean, having that time to spend on diving into the emotional vocabulary and the kind of softer skills which you want to pass on is just so important, isn't it?
And the other thing, just touching up on what you've just said there, and this is just a little bit of wisdom from me, who's had to fail every day as a parent, because I'm a single mum as well. So, and the things that you thought were really important at that time just aren't. And I remember holding, 5th birthday parties where I'm thinking, well, I've got to have the cake and I've got to have this and I've got to have an entertainer. My kids don't even remember the parties. And all those parents who came, we're not even in contact with them anymore. So who the hell was I trying to put myself under pressure? So actually give yourself a break. Yeah,
right. You've covered the basics: food, shelter, comfort.
Yeah. And the kids happy. Brilliant. You've done a good job.
Right. Yeah, the extra juggler at their birthday party won't be remembered, but
exactly.
Amazing. I've really enjoyed that, Lucy. I think our members have as well. We'll just see if anyone's got any more questions, guys. Feel free to send them in. Lucy, obviously you've given us loads of insights, loads to think about. If anyone here wants to gather some more information or learn more, research more about a lot of the stuff you've spoken about, where's the best place for them to go?
I hang out on LinkedIn a lot. And so if you want to send me a connection, then we can have a chat there. But that's just Lucy Barkas. I'm the only one there. If you're more interested in the leadership stuff that I do, you can follow, there's the hashtag LeaderX, which is the name of my book and my podcast. So you can, tap in there, get the book. But yeah, find me on LinkedIn. You can send me messages and we can have a chat, see what happens.
Amazing. And with your podcast, it's LeaderX as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's out now?
Yeah. I've got a different leader on every couple of days. So because we have time on our hands at the moment, which is great.
Yeah.
So either LeaderX or Lucy Barkas, you'll find me. Listen to the podcast, read the book, get in touch. Let's just connect.
Amazing. Lucy Barkas, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.